The morning sun had barely reached over the hills when the rhythmic sound of hammers striking steel echoed through the small stone forge. Smoke drifted from the chimney while sparks danced like tiny stars in the dim light. Inside, an aging blacksmith named Eli stood beside a roaring furnace. His hands were scarred by decades of work, but every movement carried patience and purpose. Standing beside him was his young son, Micah, eager to learn the family craft. "Today," Eli said with a gentle smile, "you will see how an axe is truly born." Micah's eyes widened as his father placed chunks of dark iron ore into a clay crucible. "It doesn't look like an axe," Micah laughed. "No," Eli replied. "Right now, it is only potential." He carefully lowered the crucible into the heart of the blazing fire. The fire must become hotter than the metal can resist. The furnace roared as the bellows breathed life into the flames. Minutes turned into hours. The ore slowly surrendered to the heat until it glowed bright orange, then nearly white. Micah watched carefully. Suddenly, he noticed something unusual. Dark foam and crust began rising to the surface of the molten metal. "What's that?" he asked. Eli nodded. "Those are the impurities. The fire is separating them from what is valuable." Using a long iron rod, Eli gently scraped the floating waste from the surface and dropped it into a bucket beside the forge. "It looked like it was all one piece," Micah said. "It was," Eli answered, "but the fire reveals what doesn't belong." Again and again, Eli returned the metal to the heat. Each time, more impurities floated upward. Each time, they were removed. The molten steel became cleaner, stronger, brighter. Only then did Eli pour the glowing metal into the waiting mold. "This is only the beginning," he explained. When the metal had cooled enough to hold its shape, he removed the rough axe head and placed it upon the anvil. Then came the hammer. Strike after strike rang through the valley. Every blow shaped the blade. Every reheating softened the steel just enough for the next correction. Every plunge into cool water hardened what had been formed. Micah noticed that the work seemed endless. "If the metal is already pure," he asked, "why keep heating it?" Eli smiled. "Purity alone is not enough. It must also be shaped." The day stretched into evening. The rough edges disappeared. The blade grew sharp. The eye for the wooden handle became smooth and perfectly centered. Finally, Eli selected a seasoned hickory handle, fitted it securely into the axe head, and drove a wooden wedge into place until the steel would never loosen. He polished the blade until it reflected the firelight. Then, without saying a word, he turned toward his son. Holding the finished axe with both hands, Eli placed it into Micah's waiting palms. The young boy nearly gasped. Only that morning he had seen rough stones covered in dirt. Now he held a gleaming tool that could build homes, clear forests, gather firewood, and protect a family. "It feels alive," Micah whispered. Eli rested a hand on his son's shoulder. "No, my son, it has simply become what it was always meant to be." Micah looked from the polished blade back toward the furnace where the fire still glowed. So the fire wasn't trying to destroy it. Eli shook his head. "No, the fire revealed it. The impurities had to rise before they could be removed. The hammer had to strike before strength could take shape. The cooling had to happen before the edge could endure." He pointed toward the finished axe resting in Micah's hands. "Remember this whenever life becomes difficult. The greatest craftsmen do not fear the fire. They understand that heat exposes what weakens us. They remove it. They continue shaping. And in time, what began as hidden potential becomes something strong enough to serve others." Micah tightened his grip on the axe and smiled. At that moment, he realized his father had not merely taught him how to forge steel, he had shown him how character is forged as well.